What is the highest round ever achieved on every Call of Duty Zombies map? I've seen quite a few videos cover this same topic over the years, but they're often wrong, incomplete, or outdated, and none of them really explain the strategies much. Sure, we always have the Zombies World Record website to go off of, and while it's accurate most of the time, it's not 100% for various reasons, and it doesn't give a whole lot of information. So, I figured I'd go on a deep dive into the World Record Underground, getting the knowledge straight from the source and using everything I've seen and learned over my decade in the high round community to give you a better idea of how every high round record was played. With 74 total Zombies maps released across all Call of Duty games, it's a lot of content to cover. So I'll keep it brief so this video doesn't turn out longer than the Zombies iceberg, but you'll be able to see how each map is played to its strengths to reach the point it's at today. Starting off with World at War, the first Zombies game, we have the first Zombies map ever, Nacht und Toten at round 8,817 by Krups. The reason this round is so ridiculously high is because the first 3 maps on World at War only have 24 zombies per round in solo, instead of 24 zombies per horde. Nacht is a pretty basic map with a pretty basic strategy, gathering all the zombies that can spawn at once, or hording up, and using the flamethrower. Luckily, the flamethrower has scaling damage, but it still takes a while to kill, hence why this map is so slow. World at War also has insta-kill rounds though, which is when the zombie's health gets too high and resets to round 1 health every other round or so after a certain point, in this case round 163. On these rounds, you can just use the Thompson machine gun to kill. This game ended to a reset after 154 hours of gameplay, which is when the map overflows on entities and restarts itself back to round 1. Verrucht is round 3,365, also by Krups, ending to a death this time. He achieved this by hitting the trap by a double tap, leading most of the zombies through it, and burning the one window inside the trap with the flamethrower. On insta-kill rounds, he would simply shoot the MP40 in the same area. Verrucht is basically a survival game of trying not to die to the over-caffeinated zombies, as this is the only map in history where they are actually faster than you are. Shinonuma is round 11,843 by Unique, the highest numerical round in Zombies history, although there's a bit of a caveat to that since there's only 24 zombies per round. Unique stayed by the Flogger, using the Wunderwaffe to kill half hordes, the Flogger to conserve ammo, and the MG42 on insta-kill rounds, until he reset after 105 hours. Derice is the problem child of the World at War family, as it has the normal scaling amount of zombies per round instead of just 24, so its record is much lower at 194 by Tails Can Fly. Since it's a well-known bug that if you shock yourself with the Wunderwaffe, it permanently reduces your maximum health, even with Juggernog, Tails had to play safe by running between spawn zones and using the electric traps, shooting for points with the Thompson and using the trench gun to kill dogs. Insta-kill rounds on this version of Derice don't start until after round 200, because the zombie's health does not scale on dog rounds. So Tails didn't have that advantage either. His game would eventually end to a death from World at War's particularly sticky zombies. Now we're on to Black Ops 1, which is considered one of the best and most impressive games for high rounds, and is also one of the most insanely optimized. Before we continue though, I want to mention a term I'm going to be using a lot throughout the rest of this video, and that is spawn control. Spawn control is when you stand in a specific spot or area to force the zombies to spawn from specific places. It seems simple enough, but the ways you can use it on each map vary a lot. This is, most of the time, why you'll see players staying in the spots that they're in, because that is where you can manipulate the spawns to be the fastest on the map, and you usually want the fastest game possible to get the highest round. Anyway, back to the records. The classic Kino der Toten's record is 240 by French player Sluya. Sluya used the fire trap, which you can stand in and let the zombies die around you, but he also did something called triple trapping with force outs. This is when you not only hit the electric trap between the spawn and the theater, but also the one between the theater and the dressing room, which can be rough on your points before instas, but is faster. Forcing out means using the thunder gun as often as possible to get out of the fire trap room faster. On Kino, if you want to play fast and not get Nova crawlers in the fire trap room, you also have to never go into spawn after you turn the power on, which means you can't ever pack a punch. On instas, Sluya simply stayed in the fire trap room and used the MPL. Almost every world record on Black Ops 1 that I'll talk about has ended to a reset, which means these records are mostly based on playing extremely well and as fast as possible. However, this game technically ended to a death, but it's only because once Sluya reached 240, he knew he wouldn't be able to finish the round before reset, so he started messing around on the map and died. 5 is our first controversial record. The highest round that exists on it is 244 by UNESCO. While this game does have full gameplay and nothing fishy about it has ever come to light, some players think it is cheated due to the fact that it violates the rule set outlined by Black Ops 1 high round players. UNESCO used a patch to add an in-game timer, and any type of patch is a big no-no in Black Ops 1 world record attempts. This is because you can theoretically hide anything in a patch, even if it's something as simple as a timer patch. You could change your luck in the game from drops to special rounds to mystery box luck, and no one would ever know. For this reason, Black Ops 1 players have banned patches outright. The highest round unpatched, which is what most players consider the 5 world record, is 241 by Jermaine Cubes, who played his game almost a year before UNESCO and used the same strategy. 5 is all about using the traps in spawn and trying to get as many zombies through each trap before it turns off and cools down, using the distraction effect of the crossbow when you get in trouble. For instas, Jermaine packed the stakeout and wreaked havoc in the war room elevator, where zombies could only come from 2 directions and he could buy ammo easily. And yes, on round 240, Jermaine trickshot the pig. Ascension is considered one of the most optimized records of its time, at 244 by Fur It Can Walk. Ascension is a trade map, which means you get the Wunder weapon, in this case the Thunder Gun, use all its ammo, and then swap it out and get it back from the box with the zombies chasing you. But what makes Ascension so nuanced is that its layout is fairly complicated, and there are a lot of ways to traverse the map faster and save time, along with maximizing trap kills while you're doing so. Trade maps also rely a lot on luck and getting your Wunder weapon back from the box quickly, and Fur's luck in this game was so good that some players have even accused him of cheating. However, if you want my personal opinion, I think this game is totally legit based on the simple fact of how much Furd is known to play, study, and admire the game, and how this game is not actually as optimized as you might think by today's standards. People have been getting very close to this record in 2024, and I expect it will actually be beaten soon. On Instas, Furt went up near Speed Cola and used the packed M16 grenade launcher to fight back against the 3 spawn up there, as you can bottleneck the zombies pretty well in that area. He reset not far into 244. Call of the Dead is one of only 3 maps where the co-op record is actually higher than the solo record, and it is the only map where the solo record can never be as high as the co-op record. This is because of the special ability of the Wunder weapon, the VR11, to shoot your teammate and give them insta-kill for about 10 seconds. Australian players Zomba and Eggman use this ability in conjunction with the packed AK-74U to horde up on the beach and mow down horde after horde of zombies. The solo strategy is completely different, and if you've watched my video on it, you know it just recently made some of the biggest strides forward of any optimization ever in zombies history. The solo world record holder, Prompt, used an exploit where zombies will die behind a barrier if they're standing still for too long, to bleed out tons of zombies while using the VR11's singular turning effect on those in front of him, and then trading it out when it ran out of ammo. This is quite a bit slower though, and as such, the record solo is only 105. If you want to know more about that game, I have a separate, much more in-depth video on it that I'll link below. Shangri-La is the other controversial Black Ops 1 record. This is because of a hole in the rule set. See, on Black Ops 1 there's a glitch called spawn canceling. On any map with a ceiling spawner, it is possible to kill zombies coming out of it too fast and permanently block it for the rest of the game, so no zombies spawn from there. Much of the community believes doing this should invalidate the game, but here's the thing. This is only an issue on Call of the Dead, Moon, and Shangri-La. On Call of the Dead and Moon, you would never want to do it because it will make your game slower anyway, and on Call of the Dead it's banned. But on Shangri-La, it is almost unavoidable if you're doing the fastest insta-kill insta-kill round strategy in the Semtex room. Technically, the highest round on Shang is 208 by Brazilian player HGM Rick, which is actually considered one of the greatest games of Black Ops 1 ever played. Instead of doing the normal strategy of having the zombies spawn by the M16 and Semtexes, running into the AK room, turning the horde around and killing them, Rick used a strategy that was long thought to be too hard to pull off and made it farther than anyone else. He stayed only in the Semtex room, hoarding up entirely in there, but Rick accidentally canceled the spawn late into the game, and the community has had a hard time coming to a decision over the years on whether this should put Rick's game out of the running, as it's impossible to tell if he would have gotten the same round had he not canceled the spawn. The second highest round on Shang, Furretkenwalk's 206, also canceled the spawn, so the highest round without canceling is 195 by Nestor53. Nestor used the same strategy as Furret, but a different route, gathering full hordes down near the Semtex room, shrinking them, and grenading them, and trading out his baby gun when it ran out of ammo. While Rick and Furret's games ended to resets, Nestor's actually ended to a rare glitch where the zombies just stopped spawning, and he had to quit. Now on to Moon, which is another one of the most complicated maps on Black Ops 1, just because of the sheer amount of stuff you can do and the knowledge you need to play it fast. This record was just pushed to 252 by Furretkenwalk, making it the new highest round on all of Black Ops 1. Furret used the 2-spawn room in Tunnel 11 by keeping the door to Stamina Up closed, using the wave gun on the window and the zap guns on the ceiling spawn. There are a lot of different ways you can get ammo back on Moon, from trading to forcing and hacking drops with the Gersh devices, to even using the biodome for drops, and Furret used all of these methods to stay fast and efficient for almost 20 rounds past the previous record. On insta-kill rounds, he used the packed M16 in the 2-spawn, being careful to avoid canceling the spawn and getting even more max ammos from this. Nocturne Toten was also just beaten recently, and is currently 150 by British player Hype. On Noct, there's not much to do, so basically all you can do is run around with the Thunder Gun, killing full hordes to optimize your ammo. However, you will always eventually run into box error on Noct, which is when you use the mystery box too many times and the game crashes. To push this back, players will use a wall weapon like the Thompson to shoot the zombies until round 70 or so. This takes an excruciatingly long time, but with some box luck later in the game, you can push past what you would get without doing so. Hype errored at the normal amount of box hits on Noct, 4,900, making this the only current Black Ops 1 record to end to a box error. Verrucht is round 208 by Nestor53, using a double trap strategy, since there are no infinitely killing wonder weapons on Verrucht. Nestor would start at one trap, lead the zombies through it, jump out of it so the ones that spawned inside followed him through the electricity, run to the other side of the map to use the other one, and repeat. For instas, he left the door from Mule Kick to the trap upstairs closed, and used the Thompson and grenades to kill the zombies as they came at him down this long room. Sluya also tied this record very recently by using a much faster and much more dangerous strategy dubbed Datstrat. Datstrat involves using only the trap by speed cola and running 2 hordes through it from the kitchen on every activation. As you might expect, this requires incredible timing and a lot of zombie dodging. Plus you have to hoard up in the room next to the trap as opposed to just gathering the zombies behind you as you run across the map. This strategy has been around for years, but until now no one had been able to pull it off until even insta-kill rounds, let alone the world record. For instance, Sluya also used a much faster method than Nestor, camping in the kitchen with the door behind him to power closed, and using the bar rifle and grenades to slay the 2 windows next to him, and the zombies coming in from the trap room. Sluya met Nestor's record almost 15 hours faster, but unfortunately died trying to push through a handful of zombies inside the trap, making for a truly heartbreaking end. Shino Numa is round 235 by Tails Can Fly. On Shino, there are not many resources to use either, so Tails killed the zombies with the Flogger and kept the Wunderwaffe as a safety weapon in case he got stuck while stalling on his route around the map. Luckily, the Flogger has 2 independent trap switches, so it was always ready by the time he got back to it. For instance, he went to the hut next to the zipline and camped in the corner with the bar rifle, where he could see all the zombies coming from far away. And finally, Doris is round 250 by Sluya. Doris is is one of the highest skill ceilinged maps because you use Trade Strat, a combination of trap strategies and trading strategies, which is super effective on this map because a lot of the box locations are near traps. So, in what normally would be downtime, you can hit the box for the Wunder Waft, spam off all its ammo in the room with the fastest spawns, and repeat. On insta-kill rounds, you fend off in the Thompson room by spraying down the zombies as soon as you see them. Derice takes an immense amount of perfect decision making, great movement, and breakneck luck, which combines some of the best elements of zombies, and Sluya played this game out as close to perfect as anyone's gotten on it. And of course we have to mention Zombies' side mode, Dead Ops Arcade. Strategy on Dead Ops is a little hard to explain because it's mostly focused on movement, leveraging the items you're given, and building up your armory to balance nukes, boosts, and lives. The highest round on the first Dead Ops on Black Ops 1 is 160, by a lot of people, the first ever being a player named Feet and Gun. There are multiple games that have reached this round with anywhere from 1 to 4 players. Co-op is not nearly as much of an exponential time extension on Dead Ops as it is on regular zombies, and often it is actually easier to get a higher round on co-op because donating lives to other players when they go down gives you more armory items. But Dead Ops Arcade 1 has a hard cap because the game literally breaks. See, every 40 rounds you get a monkey boss round, and each time you get it, an additional monkey boss spawns. When you kill one, you get a ton of gems spouting out of his body as a reward. But by the time you're on the 4th rotation, there are 4 monkeys, and they spawn so many gems that the game can't handle it and crashes. There are theoretical ways to avoid this crash and beat 160 by collecting all the gems in time, but in 14 years no one has ever been able to pull it off. Now we're on to Black Ops 2, starting with the survival maps. These records are comparatively very low because there are no traps and all you have to kill with is the Raygun and Raygun Mark II, which are not very strong in high rounds. But at least there's no box error on Black Ops 2, so you can trade infinitely. Bus Depot is another map where the co-op record is higher than solo, but only by 1 round. This is partially because, since Bus Depot has no perks or revives, there's a lot more room for error in co-op where your partner can revive you, than in solo where one crawler can end your game. American duo Flames and Kukazor have the highest round at 92, and in fact they actually reset on the very last zombie of 92 because they were taking a break and accidentally fell asleep. The solo record is 91 by French player Blasters, who died to a crawler he couldn't see in the fog. However, you usually want to kill over here in the fog because you can utilize a spawn control here to force the zombies to not spawn in the first room. This helps a little bit by creating a safety area. But since Depot has the least to work with on the map, it's the lowest record on Black Ops 2. Farm at least has perks, and its record is 96 by Chris Voltage. Farm is easily the least played map on Black Ops 2, because it's basically a more boring version of Town without Pack-a-Punch. There's some spawn control in the barn, but it's really only useful in early rounds or while using an insta-kill drop. So Chris ran circles with the ray gun. When trading out the ray gun, Chris either used EMP grenades to put the zombies to sleep, or jumped up on the porch railing to hit the box from below while running in the yard, keeping him from having to go into the cramped farmhouse to hit it mid-round. This game eventually ended to a reset after 141 hours. Town is our first joint or tied world record at round 100. The first 100 was achieved by, again, Chris Voltage, and this is the highest round on any survival map. This game is also quite old and was massive when it was played, because few players thought you could make it to triple digits with just the ray guns. The strategy boils down to, you guessed it, running in circles and spamming the ray gun, but also spamming whatever weapons you can get as well to keep a constant stream of damage on the zombies, even though at higher rounds the damage is microscopic. Chris and many players before him ran this specific area by stamina up, because the zombie spawns were all fairly close to the player, and he actually left the door to Speed Cola in the bank closed for the entire game to lessen the amount of spawns he was dealing with. When he ran out of ammo, Chris would trade with the Horde at the 2 box locations, only EMPing when he had to. The strategy has actually changed a bit in the 5 years since this record was set, and recently, Sluya tied this game with a different approach. Instead of leaving the door to Speed Cola closed, Sluya left the door up to Juggernog closed, and killed and used instas on the road right next to the stairs. hours, getting even faster spawns than Chris. But this meant, of course, that he had to play the entire game without Juggernog. But even so, he never even took a down. Well, if you don't count this one where his game tabbed out, or this one where his brain tabbed out. Saluda's strategy and skill made him over 20 hours faster to round 100 than Chris, but his game ended on the same round to an unexpected error. After some testing, it seems this error is related to EMPing the zombies in certain spots with the Juggernog door closed, so this record is still beatable. The record on Nuketown is a 3-way tie at 96, in 3 games of massively varying ages that all ended in different ways. The oldest is Figsu's 96 from 2018, in which he died during a trade. A year later, Chris Voltage tied this record, but ran into a bug where he could no longer turn his camera left or right. Nowadays, we know this is from turning too much in the same direction, and that you can actually fix it by inputting turns in the opposite direction, but at the time it was considered a game over, and Chris suicided on the joint world record. Then just this year, another player named EverHN also tied this record and ended up resetting on 96. Ever played his game extremely safe, trading slowly and taking his time to hoard up, which meant he actually never took a single down in his game, but it also meant that he was about twice as slow as Figsu or Chris, and he ended up hitting Nuketown's 180-hour reset, which stopped him from beating the tied record. All 3 players used the same strategy of training in the teal house's backyard, Chris and Figsu with the lower house door closed to make the spawns faster, and using a specific route for each box location when trading. However, there's another Nuketown game I want to talk about as well, which is Chris Voltage's round 100 game from 2020. Chris did actually play out 100 rounds in this game, but he used an exploit that was under heated debate at the time called Fast Ray. This is where players would set specific binds to shoot the ray gun much faster than intended, causing massive increases in overall game speed. Fast Ray was eventually banned from high round attempts later that year, and even Chris himself has said that he doesn't consider this game the legitimate record. This is why I wouldn't consider this map controversial, but I thought it was still worth mentioning as you may have seen or heard about this game in the past. Moving on from survival maps, we have everyone's favorite map, Transit. This record is 178 by Brazilian player Destroyer ZP, who played a fast game with no downs and ended to an error. No one knows the exact cause of the error on Transit yet, so it's hard to figure out a specific strategy to beat the record. Destroyer used the jet gun outside the farm area, which is wide open with all the spawns close, and it's especially fast if you leave the gate to the actual farm closed, which Destroyer did. He used the knife exploit with the jet gun, where you can knife after hitting the shoot button and it will still kill but never overheat, and cashed in on insta-kill drops and bus kills whenever he could. Die Rise is 219 by another Brazilian player, Issues. This is considered one of the best Black Ops 2 games ever played. For the first 100 rounds or so, Issues used the Sliquifier in the elevator shaft, but after the weapon's damage drops off, he had to run cutbacks in the trample steam room, gathering hordes and killing them with the buildable trap. Not only is this an extremely tough strategy, you have to leave the power off to keep from erroring on Die Rise, which means you can only get a revive every few rounds. But Issues was a god at the game and took minimal downs anyway, before he finally decided to quit on 219 by forcing the game to error. The highest round on Mob of the Dead is 237 by Daruma. Ruma spent the first 60 rounds camping in the room by a double tap with the Mark II, the Acid Gat, and the Hell's Redeemer, and the next 40 rounds running hordes through the fan trap in the warden's office, doing OnlyFans. I mean a strategy called OnlyFans. The entire rest of the game he killed in the cafeteria with the acid trap, staying on the stairs while the trap was on and killing with the tomahawk. When it was recharging, he ran a long loop through the cafeteria, continuing to kill with the tomahawk whenever he could. Mob is a long game of keeping your pace consistent. Even though you can down a lot due to having afterlives on this map, you want to avoid it as much as possible, as it will waste a lot of time riding the gondola back and forth to get Juggernog. You also want to keep your SPH, or seconds per horde, consistent, the rate at which you're killing zombies. Ruma's game ended to an error on 237, although he wouldn't have made it past this round anyway because he was minutes from reset. Buried is an interesting record, because it is the maximum round you can possibly get to on the map. On Black Ops 2 and 3, the round number will stop going up after 255. This round was considered virtually impossible to reach on Black Ops 2 for years, until French high rounder blasters did it. The classic strategy on Buried for almost a decade was to camp in the Juggernog alleyway and use the subsurface resonator trap, but you would always eventually error. Recently, the community discovered that you can avoid that error by playing with the trample steam in the saloon instead, and that is what Blasters did for much of his game, switching to the old resonator strategy only when he was down a quick revive or when he was well past round 200. A month after he played this game, Issues tied this record by using the trample steam strategy only, taking very few downs due to how consistently he was running the strategy. Both players quit once they hit the max round as they could not progress any further. If you're interested in these games, I have a much more in-depth video on them too that I'll link below. And finally, Origin's world record is 164 by Daruma. This record is also rather low because you only get 26 hours in an Origins game before it errors, and because there are no real traps on the map. The ice and wind staffs are the only useful weapons to kill in high rounds, and while these will rip through hordes in the early rounds, after 110 or so you will start having ammo problems. After 120 it becomes even worse because the staffs will become inconsistent at insta-killing. But the problem is that you can't just trade out the staffs like you would with Wonder weapons on other maps, because the staffs are buildables, so you have to rely on getting max ammos to fill them back up and keep killing fast. Daruma did a great job maximizing his ammo, tracking his drop cycle to know when he would get another max ammo, and making decisions that optimized his speed. But he also used a fairly new strategy with the tank. Players have always used the tank to kill zombies when both staffs were empty and no max ammo was coming, but Ruma maximized these kills by following the tank around the map as it was moving, and leading the zombies to it. Origins is an incredibly complicated map, so if you're looking to know more, I'm going to be making its world record history video very soon, so keep an eye out for that. Advanced Warfare is the first zombies game to dramatically change zombie and player movement. This, of course, was with the addition of exosuits to the game, allowing for a lot more maneuverability, like rocket jumps. I would say Advanced Warfare is probably the least played zombies today of any game, but despite the fact that the majority of its solo records have lasted over half a decade, they've all been beaten recently except for the final DLC map. The record on Outbreak, the first map, is 183 by French player Romain Lu. This strategy mostly consists of boost jumping back and forth over the octagonal laser trap in the exosuit room. When the trap is off, you can ground slam the zombies to pick off a few from the horde. Romain's game here ended to a reset, but the strange thing is that he reset very early at 55 hours when the reset is supposed to be closer to 74 hours. No one knows why. Infection, or as I affectionately call it, Burger Town, is 146 by Italian player Marinaccio Fran 98. This strategy is actually pretty similar to Outbreaks. Marinaccio jumped around the storage crate area in the spawn room with the electric floor trap active, using exo movement to avoid zombies and the trap. Then he'd do a loop around outside while the trap recharged, shoot for points, get a ground slam in, hit the trap again, and repeat. Toward the end of the game, Marinaccio avoided shooting zombies and mostly relied on slamming for points, in an attempt to avoid erroring. However, this game still ended to a G-spawn error, which is a pretty common zombies error where you run out of object slots. On Advanced Warfare, it is theorized that this is caused by using the traps too much, or special zombies, or both. Carrier's world record is 131, again by Romain Lu. He bounced between two different traps for this strategy, the laser trap on the stairs and, what is this, a Zamboni? Since they're in rooms right next to each other, he could use one while he waited for the other to recharge, and shot for points in between as well. Carrier also has a feature where you will have to defuse bombs that repeatedly pop up within a certain time limit, or you risk spawning Goliaths, and Romain had to do around 10 of these across rounds 130 and 131. Carrier is definitely one of the most brutal maps on Advanced Warfare, as you can see by how Romain ends up dying at the end of his game. And Descent has the honor of being the oldest solo world record ever in zombies, set at 105 by Triple Bob 59 all the way back in 2015, a month after the map came out. As you might expect from that, Bob didn't have a real set strategy. He mostly just ran around the map ground slamming and using traps when he could. He ended up G-spawning on one 105, again probably due to the traps. In July 2024, Romain tied this record by using a more refined strategy that made him more than 10 hours faster to the same round. He used the laser trap on the circular stairs, jumping over it and leading the zombies through it, and parkouring for points as usual when it was recharging. This game ended to his PC crashing, unfortunately, as opposed to an error within the game, so there's potential for this map to finally be pushed farther. There's actually a third 105 by famous Zombies high rounder IL Steve IL, but this one is not considered the record because he played it on the version of the game for old gen consoles, which for some reason has way less special zombies, and therefore is much easier. On Black Ops 3, I'm going to have to change the way I explain the records a little bit, because this game is a bit of a special case. Remember when I said that on Black Ops 2 and 3 the round cap is 255? Well, while it's impossible to get to on any Black Ops 2 map except Buried, it's possible on every Black Ops 3 map. On some Black Ops 3 maps, it's even easy, maybe a little too easy. See, Black Ops 3 was the game that introduced alternate ammo types, or AATs, which can turn any weapon, including wall weapons, into an infinitely killing gun. A lot of maps have 5 or 10 people who have reached 255, and in the case of Ascension and Revelations, there are more than 30. Now, identifying Ascension as a 30-way tie for the record would be pretty silly, because since you don't have to worry much about reset, you could play basically any strategy at any level and still get 255. So Black Ops 3 players started identifying the game that achieves round 255 in the fastest time as the record instead, as the best example of skill and optimization. But I still think it's important to shout out the first person to get 255 on each map as well, because they had the high round record at the point they played their game. I'll also tell you how many 255s have been achieved on each map. All these games were also played with classic gobblegums, as that is the default loadout for world record players. The most helpful of these are safety gums like In Plain Sight and Anywhere But Here, Lucky Crit to increase AAT activation chances, and the ammo refill gum Alchemical Antithesis. One more thing about Widow's Wine that you'll notice between these games. Most players use Widow's Wine only for part of the game or not at all. This is because Widow's Wine will eventually error the game if too many grenades explode or are pulled out. So let's start with the first and one of the best maps on Black Ops 3, Shadows of Evil. There are 14 255s on Shadows with classic or no gums. The first 255 ever on Shadows was completed by New Zealander The Gamer's End in March of 2018. Gamers use the upgraded Sword Specialist, which flies around and kills zombies for you, and the Apothecant Servant for protection, as he trained in the entrance to the Waterfront District with the main waterfront gate closed behind him, and the gate upstairs to the right closed as well. This makes this area a 3 spawn, and dangerous but extremely fast. When the sword came back to him, gamers would use the Kuda, the nearest wall weapon, with Blast Furnace on partial or full hordes to recharge it, and Fireworks to clear the stragglers. Once he was out of revives and had bought Widow's Wine, he changed that AAT to Deadwire to get Widow's nades back safer. When Marg was spawned, gamers would just insta-kill them by making the Civil Protector spawn on top of them. All 255 games end in suicides or quits, as there's nothing left to do once you hit this round. Even if you complete round 255, the game will simply start a new round 255. The current fastest 255 on Shadows of Evil actually used a completely different strategy, one that came into popularity just this year. Jack Pavlik, a Czech player, used this method with beast mode jumps to open the back spawn gate from the first room and get to the rest of the map with the main door out of spawn still closed. While this was clearly not intended by the developers, it's been accepted by the Black Ops 3 community as a legitimate way to play the map. While standing out here near the gate, zombies will only spawn from 2 places, the laundromat window and the canal below you. This makes it even faster than the waterfront strategy. Jack used a spamming exploit with the unupgraded sword, as this is actually faster than using the upgraded sword, since the upgraded one will not fly down and kill zombies in the canal, but the default one's slam will hit them as they spawn. To recharge it, he used the L-Car and the KRM with Blast Furnace and Thunderwall AATs, making him over 10 hours faster than Gamer's original 255, and giving him a final time of 49 hours 7 minutes. There are 15 solo 255s on the Giant, the first being by Woodside62 in July of 2017. On the Giant, if you leave the door next to the Shiva closed in the first room, the zombies will only spawn in the first room as long as you're there, and Woodside used this to his advantage. He trained in the open open area next to the RK5 and use Deadwire on that gun, turned on the Shiva, and fireworks on the HVK to kill the zombies almost constantly. You'll start to notice a pattern of players using at least Deadwire and turn to kill the zombies. That's because Deadwire has the shortest recharge time at 6 seconds, and turn can spread out and kill a lot of zombies on its own while you continue killing with Deadwire. Fireworks is a good addition if you have room for Mule Kick because it can kill full hordes, but it takes a while to recharge. Deadwire is not as useful on Shadows of Evil because Deadwire does not charge the sword. Similarly to Shadows, the Giant has had a huge strategy change in the last 2 years that has made players much faster. The fastest 255 on the Giant is by American Black Ops 3 aficionado Sniper Cat, where Sniper Cat trained in the VMP room with the top door closed, using Deadwire, turned, and the Wunder for safety, reaching 255 in 56 hours 34 minutes, a total of 9 hours faster than Woodside's original. This strategy is a lot faster than Spawn Room, but was thought to be too difficult to survive until the max round for a while. That is, until Sniper Cat did it, and he did it without Juggernog. As you might expect, this won't be the last time we're seeing him on this list, since he collects 255s like Infinity Stones. 14 people have reached 255 on Der Eisendrache, led by British player Ashy in July 2018. Ashy stayed in the HVK room right next to the power room, with the door down to Samantha's room closed. He used the Stormbow when he could, as it hones toward and stuns lots of zombies with every shot. But when that ran out of ammo, which was most of the game, he used the HVK with Deadwire to charge the Ragnarok specialist. Slam once with them, shoot once or twice to recharge the bit he used, slam again and repeat. If the first Deadwire burst didn't recharge the Ragnaroks, he would use Electric Cherry to stun the zombies to get a second hit in. Ashy was actually the only one to get 255 with this strategy. Today, this strategy has transferred to the stairs in the church next door, where players will stay at the top, reload with Electric Cherry to stun the zombies, light up a few with Deadwire and turned, slam the Ragnaroks, and repeat. Another British player, Square, used this strategy to achieve 255, his third 255 on the map that is, in a record time of 53 hours 16 minutes in February 2022, beating Ashy by 6 hours. To kill Panzers, both players would stand in the power room while the Panzer spawned, use the death ray trap to immobilize him, lay into his core and kill him before the death ray turned off. Unfortunately, Der Eisendrache has a mysterious error that has been keeping players from pushing the 255 time down in the past 2 years, so any progress on this record is at a standstill at the moment. On Zetsubo no Shima, there are only 3 255s, and the first one is the fastest one, 52 hours 50 minutes by my good friend KXG124, or Keg. Ever since he sent me a potato with my name on it, I've been on a first name basis with him. ZNS is loosely similar to Shadows of Evil, where you want to charge up your specialist as fast as possible, in this case the Skull of Non-Sapwe. Use all of it and repeat, while still maximizing Deadwire and turned kills. If you do this in the Skull Room, it's wildly dangerous but incredibly fast, a great high risk versus reward strategy, and this is how Keg achieved the first and best 255 on the map. ZNS also has a feature called imprinting, where you can essentially create a save state of your player by growing a certain type of plant. If you go down, you will respawn as the version of yourself you were when you made the imprint. This is better to use than Quick Revive because you cannot rebuy Electric Cherry if you go down, and you need it to stun zombies and kill spiders. However, you can only grow 4 imprints, and Keg used all of these in his game, and then grabbed Widows once he had run out. 2 other players, Dad Won't Hug Me and IMZ123, achieved 255 after Keg, but they were slower, and several games that would have been much faster than Keg's game have been stopped by yet another mysterious error toward the very end of the game. Keg also reigns over Gorod Krovi, which is definitely one of the more hectic maps on Black Ops 3 between the Valkyries, the Manglers, and the Dragons. There are 2 255s on the map, both by Keg. Gorod Krovi has the most powerful shield of any map though, and it's actually your main weapon besides Deadwire and turned, as you can camp down in the shield room and fend off the zombies by stalling the window and hitting the trap. If you do the Easter egg in under 90 minutes, you will get a permanent perkaholic as well, meaning that every time you go down, you will revive with all your perks except Quick Revive, which you can just buy back from the Wunder Fizz. Gorod Krovi also has a bizarre glitch where after round 159, turned zombies that get electrocuted by Valkyrie drones will stay turned for several minutes instead of dying after just a few kills, meaning that you can amass an absolutely ridiculous amount of turned zombies on the map at once, and have them fight for you against the real zombies. This phenomenon is called Turned Army. For years, Gorod Krovi had an unexplained error that happened anywhere from 140 to the early 200s, that no one could figure out the cause of because there's so much going on the map. But Keg ran a test game where he did his best to kill no Valkyrie drones until he had to progress the round and ended up achieving 255, proving this was the cause. Keg prioritized the Valkyrie's lives over his own and ended up taking 64 downs in this game, so it was a good thing he did the Easter egg. 8 months later, he played a second game to 255 with no gobblegums and ended up being about 2 hours faster than his first game, clocking in at a final time of 67 hours 25 minutes. Now here's a question. What do you get when you combine the Thundergun, Apothecon Servant, Ragnarok's, Gumballs, and a 2-spawn? 55 255s, that's what, and those are just the ones listed on ZWR. There are even more unsubmitted ones. The first 255 on Revelations was actually the first 255 ever, by a German player named Capo. The bad news is, no footage still exists of that game, so we'll be moving on to talk about the current fastest game, which is Ganon Snipes 255 in just 31 hours 25 minutes. Revelations is ridiculously quick because of how overpowered your weapons are and how fast and close the spawns are, and Ganon just fried every zombie in sight straight down the line, constantly using Deadwire when the Ragnaroks were placed and using the Wunder weapons to recharge them. Revelations is generally considered a cakewalk by Black Ops 3 players, but it definitely isn't easy to play it this fast, although as you'll see from the rest of this lineup, Ganon is no stranger to speed. Moving on to the Zombies Chronicles maps, Nocturne Toten only has one 255, and probably will only have one 255. At least, I hope, for the sake of everyone's mental health. Tom Fantasy holds it, and if you haven't heard of this game before, you'll probably realize why everyone knows about it when I tell you it took him 296 hours and 36 minutes to reach 255. Noct is incredibly slow because there's no Pack-a-Punch without Mega Gumballs, so you have to hoard up from the meandering spawns, make sure you have all the zombies funneled into the box room with the stairs door closed, thundergun them, and repeat. Tom shot for points every time he hoarded up to be able to double hit the gumball machine for alchemical antithesis more often, since 2 hits will cost over 1,000,000 points at round 100 plus. Trades are also pretty unforgiving on this map, and you have to do them dangerously if you want to get the max round before Noct's 301 hour reset, which Tom just barely scraped by. Easily the most grueling 255 on the game, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. Verrucht only has one 255 also, and it's by Sniper Cat in 116 hours 22 minutes. Black Ops 3 Verrucht's strategy route isn't too different from Black Ops 1 Verrucht, except you can stand next to the double tap trap and the electricity hitbox is big enough that all the zombies will die walking to you from the window into it. However, going between traps is very dangerous, and you only have the unreliable unpacked Wonderwaft to protect you, so it's even more impressive that Sniper Cat managed to complete this entire game with no downs. In fact, he never even bought Quick Revive. Instead, he bought Double Tap to make more points to double hit for Gumballs. This prevented him from having to trade the Wonderwaff as much at the end of rounds, or in some emergency cases in the middle of rounds. Shino Numa follows the same pattern. 1 255 by Sniper Cat running between traps, this time the HUD electric traps and the Flogger. This game took him 104 hours 36 minutes, and he was also flawless, meaning he didn't take a single down. Black Ops 3's Shino Numa is actually a bit different from Black Ops 1's, as the Flogger is more brutal, so you're forced to crawl under it instead of crouching, and the spawn zones are different as well. A lot of effects, such as the trap electricity, will disappear barely more than an hour into the game, so Sniper Cat had to deal with these visual glitches for almost the entire thing. But that's not the only weird bug on Black Ops 3 Shino. Past round 112, the zombies start interacting interacting strangely with the flogger. On certain set rounds, called frozen rounds, this name will make more sense when we get to Origins, it will only reduce them to 1 HP, causing the player to be able to shoot them and get drops from them. On non-frozen rounds, they will only be reduced to 1 HP if they are already damaged when they go through the flogger. This is actually kind of a good thing, because it is the only way besides dog rounds to get max ammos on high rounds to refill the safety Wunderwaffe. You also cannot trade the Wunderwaffe on this map because you would have to open the fishing hut to get to the box location in there, and that makes the spawns next to the flogger much slower. However, on frozen rounds, the flogger doesn't kill as efficiently, so Sniper Cat would incorporate both the storage hut and the comm room electric traps into his route to kill more zombies. Starting on 162, every round is a frozen round. When killing with the electric traps, Sniper Cat would hoard up inside the hut and jump back out through the trap shortly before it turned off, even double dipping it if he had a lot of zombies when it started. Sniper Cat also just barely hit 255 minutes before his game black screen due to the 25-day error. 16 people have maxed out Kino der Toten, with the scene set by Italian player O Jumpy in January 2019. Black Ops 3 Kino is played much differently than Black Ops 1 Kino, because you cannot stand in the fire trap on this version. So instead, players will play in the alleyway with the gate at the back closed with the Thundergun, Deadwire, and Turned. When the safety ammo of the Thundergun runs out, players can tap out to run the high round strategy in the boiler room upstairs. In Jumpy's case, because he bought double tap instead of meal kick, he left the alley on round 90. The high round strategy consists of waiting behind the trap, letting all the zombies come through and die. You can even shoot through the floor to get some extra kills on the downstairs spawn with Deadwire. Then, while the trap recharges, depending on ammo, you can blast half hordes with the Thundergun or Deadwire them as you hoard up in the room. The current fastest 255 was played by Norwegian player Next Generation in 65 hours 52 minutes, a little more than 8 hours faster than Jumpy. The most notable difference is that, first of all, Next Gen ran in the alley until round 141. He also used meal kick instead of quick revive, so he was able to use the alleyway's wall weapon, the VMP, with Turned. This allowed him to kill in the alleyway from the boiler room with the Turned zombie. Both of these games were actually flawless as well. There are 38 255s listed on ZWR for Ascension, which is the second most for any map on Black Ops 3. The first is by I'm Overcharged in June of 2017, which is kind of a funny story because he did it as a no-jug game and was only going for 200, but he accidentally kept going and ended up achieving 255, setting the high round record on the map. The strategy is simply to use the Thundergun, Deadwire, and Turned while running cutbacks in the spawn room, as the zombies will only spawn in there if you have the door next to Quick Revive closed. Today, the speedrun record is 52 hours 1 minute by Ganon Snipes. He used the same strategy for most of the game, although he used a much faster one for the early rounds. He camped in the power room with the door next to power closed, as there are only 3 spawns here, but there's not much room to stall between AAT activations. As such, once he ran out of consistent Thundergun ammo, he left this area and ran cutbacks in the spawn room. He would still go back to the power room whenever he had Thundergun ammo, but mostly he used the strategy with AATs from here until the max round. On monkey rounds, Ganon would either use the Thundergun, which always two-shots the monkeys, or the fire traps depending on which direction they were running. Ganon's game was also flawless, as he never bothered buying Quick Revive. Shangri-La was the last Black Ops 3 map to reach 255, and it was achieved just recently by none other than Sniper Cat once again. For years, players had been scraping just a few rounds away from the max round, but there simply wasn't enough time before reset for them to max out the map. However, being the crazy cat that he is, Sniper Cat decided to take on this map with no gums and no downs, and played fast enough that he reached 255 with 3 hours left over before reset. How did he do it? Well, this version of Shang plays very close to the same location as Black Ops 1 Shang, but the strategies are completely different. Here, you want to play in the Kuda room, using mostly AATs and the baby gun only as a panic weapon. Also, you want to leave the tunnel door closed to be able to train in the room with no zombies coming from that direction. However, this makes a different aspect of the game much harder because you cannot reliably get to Pack-a-Punch more than once, as the stone required to open it each time can spawn inside the tunnel and be inaccessible to the player. This means downing can hurt your game a lot, because you will lose your mule kick weapon and with it, one of your AATs. This is what had hindered the record progression previously, but Sniper Cat avoided avoided this by getting good and simply not downing. The other thing he did to speed himself up enough for the record was flipping drops into insta-kills with monkeys. This meant he could use up to 4 insta-kills per round, which saved him a lot of time. Moon has 21 255s, frontiered by Ashy in January 2018. The same 2-spawn from Black Ops 1 Moon works on this version, and here it's even faster obviously because you can use it with AATs, and you do not need Gershes to get drops. Ashy camped at the window with the wave gun, and when he needed to hack a drop for a max ammo, he would kill with AATs until a drop spawned, quickly run out of the room, throw a Gersh at power, wave gun the zombies following him, and hack the drop. This was risky as it meant his timing had to be perfect. He continued to run AATs when there were no drops left in the round to hack. Today, the fastest 255 is by Ganon Snipes, who optimized his game so much that this is the biggest time difference between the first and fastest 255s, at over 25 hours. Ganon's game being only 37 hours 36 minutes. Ganon ensured as much as possible throughout the game to get 4 drops around spaced out so he could use 4 full wave guns per round. By only shooting AATs when he needed a drop, and instead of using Gershes, he used the wave gun on the remainder of the horde as soon as the drop spawned, which gave him just enough time to hack it. Both these players also managed to get stamina up as a 5th perk from throwing QEDs at the machine. And finally, we have Origins, which only has 4 255s. This version of Origins is much easier than Black Ops 2's due to Gobblegum and AATs, but also much more grueling. The first 255 was completed by Dutch player Mark van Leerdam. Origins is the other map that has frozen rounds, called such because of the ice staff. Until round 121, it's pretty straightforward to camp in the fire gramophone tunnel with the ice staff and AATs. However, once full frozen rounds start, the ice staff won't insta-kill zombies anymore. So Mark moved down to the bottom of the excavation site and ran cutbacks down there with AATs only. Starting on round 162, you have to do this for the rest of the game. The spawns are mind-numbingly slow, so he just barely managed to reach 255 before reset. This year, French player Delta News achieved 255 in a record 86 hours 47 minutes, about 6.5 hours faster than Mark. He sped up his time by camping more efficiently and training at Generator 4 by Jug when he had a safety gun, which has slightly faster spawns. And of course, we can't forget the second installment of Dead Ops Arcade on this game as well, which does not have a round cap like the rest of the game and is currently at round 299 by Chris Voltage. DOA 2 introduces a lot more arenas, 16 per rotation instead of 10 like DOA 1. So one rotation through all the arenas and a monkey boss fight lasts 64 rounds. This means Chris was on the 5th rotation when he finally hit reset after 69.5 hours. That's right, even DOA has a reset just like any other map. There is, of course, a lot of detail and nuance that goes into this DOA, probably even more than the first one, because there are many more items and enemy types, but the biggest challenge is a specific arena dubbed China. This arena always presents a problem because it's very tight and the zombies flood in from all directions to you. Not to mention it gets harder every rotation. Chris was the 3rd in this game to make it past the dreaded 5th China, or China on the 5th rotation, which is rounds 289 to 293. This stage is nearly impossible to beat because by this point in the game there are so many special zombies and randomly spawning electric poles in the arena, and the rounds are over 20 minutes long, so almost no one had been able to survive it, even in co-op. But Chris managed to get some great item combos and used his thousands of hours of experience to crush his way through the arena, and he did it fast. Unlike DOA 1, time is a big factor on this version because you're racing against reset, but there are only minor things you can do to speed up the rounds and reduce the entities. 300 is possible, but not much farther than that. Alright, that was a lot of records, definitely the most of any one game. We're still only in 2016, but you can rest easy knowing that we're going back to numerical records. For now, as we move into what in my opinion is the most underrated zombies game, Infinite Warfare. Spaceland holds the 2nd oldest record of all time, at 249 by British player Zombie Manance, set a month after the map came out in December 2016. 2016. Menance used the croc trap, which is activated by walking over it rather than paying for it, to kill the hordes he gathered up with his route next to it, stun-locking as many zombies as possible in the trap with the wind element from the side Easter egg. He ended up resetting after 108 hours. Today, this is considered the slow, safe version of the strategy. If you hoard up on the other side and incorporate cryo-nades into your weaponry, it's much faster, but more dangerous. However, there's another problem. We're not actually sure if Menance's record is still beatable. See, this game is so old that it was played before the final zombies patch was added to the game, which added more cop zombies to the map and possibly changed some other things within the game that we don't know about. One indication of that is that almost no one has been able to get past round 200 in the past 8 years without erroring. However, until we know more, it's up in the air whether Menance's record will finally be beaten or if the record should be reconsidered. Rave in the Redwoods is round 251 by another good friend of mine, Lily Exotic. Rave has 4 elemental bows, 3 of which are very useful for high rounds. In the main stage area with the door next to the box location closed, Lily hoarded up and cycled through the trap bow, the acid rain bow, and the whirlwind bow, using up the full ammo of each. The thing is, there are 2 very consistent ways to get max ammos on Rave. The first is an item called a rewind, which when activated sends you back a few seconds in time, but also refills all your ammo, and you can pick it up every 2 rounds from a certain spot on the map. The second is called Head Game. Under the spawn room, there's a minigame where you can throw 6 knives at a zombie on a rotating wheel, and if you get a headshot every time, you get a free max ammo, and you can do this every round. This minigame actually makes maximizing ammo a pretty skillful endeavor, and Lily was so good at optimizing her shot and getting as much head as possible that she managed to camp at the stage with actual ammo until round 150. After this, she had to start utilizing the fish trap, which is kind of like Kino's fire trap in that you can stand behind it, let the zombies die, hoard up again while it recharges, and repeat. From here she bounced back and forth between stage and fish trap depending on her ammo, and ended up erroring on 251 after almost 98 hours. It's theorized that this is caused by the zombies going through too many animations over the course of the game. Shaolin Shuffle has a record of 167 by Irish player Toby MUFC. Toby played with fate and fortune cards in this game, but unlike Black Ops 3, I'm not going to split the categories here, because fortune cards in Infinite Warfare are not nearly as overpowered and game-changing as Mega Gumballs, and they don't really make Shaolin much easier anyway. This map is a pain, not only because you have to do almost the entire Easter egg to set up, but there's also a special zombie type of ninja zombies who will teleport in front of you if you start sprinting. I'm not sure who thought that was a good idea, but it greatly limits your movement on this map. However, Toby still had a lot of resources on his side to combat this. First of all, until round 70, he camped on this rooftop with the samurai sword, which easily cleans up all the zombies jumping up. Unfortunately, this will error you if you use it for too long, so after that, Toby went to the Rat King's lair, which is a much more open area for training, and had a trap he could use. He held out the Titan double pack-a-punch for most of the game, as it has a special ability that greatly increases your movement speed, so he could outpace the zombies while walking, and no ninja zombies would be triggered to spawn in front of him. To kill, he mostly used the Rat King's heart, which fills a recharging grenade slot and vaporizes all the zombies around you, and the samurai sword's long shot to clear the room. Sadly, this game ended to an error, the cause of which is unknown. Attack of the Radioactive Things record is 290 by French player Rasmo, also with Fate and Fortune cards. Attack is a step down in terms of strategy complexity, or maybe I should say a giant leap down. See, this map has a lot of buildable traps, kind of similar to Buried from Black Ops 2, but the mechanics of buildable traps in this game don't work quite the same as they do on Buried. A trap's life is measured by its time spent sitting on the map, and when it breaks, you have to wait until the next round to get a new one. But when you place a trap, there's a split second between when it activates and when the timer starts counting. Rasmo used this to his advantage by placing down and immediately picking up the Violet Ray device over and over, using its effect but never starting its timer, so it never broke and he could use it infinitely. Infinite Warfare also has a spawn blocking mechanic. If you throw down C4 on a zombie spawn, it will become inactive until you blow the C4 up. Unlike Black Ops 1, blocking spawns this way is allowed because you can use use it more strategically, and it's considered more of a feature than a glitch. Razmo used 4 C4 to block the 4 spawn room zombie windows, so he had the entire spawn room behind him to utilize if he got pushed back. The only thing he had to worry about were the Krogs, which do not die from the trap and could be a problem since you can't switch weapons while holding the trap. Luckily, Razmo did the Ghost and Skulls Easter egg to get all the perks, including Trailblazers, which allowed him to slide and kill the Krogs. Razmo played this game on an Xbox Series X, which ended up crashing while he was paused and ending his game. And the final map on Infinite Warfare, and considered the most complicated and the hardest, is Beast from Beyond. This is the final map that has a higher record in co-op than in solo, at 146 by ZSFR Maxinor and Razmo. First of all, it's possible to get to like round 600 on Beast if you never turn the power on, as only a few cryptids will spawn for each round, but this is not considered legit. On Beast, normally, they throw everything at you, literally everything. The clowns from Spaceland, the slasher from Rave, the ninjas from Shaolin, the cryptids, which are not even from this game, plus tight areas, but a few wonder weapons that you can use. One of these is the Venom X from Call of Duty Ghosts, which you can do an Easter egg to unlock a wall buy for. In solo, you can only pick it up once, so you have to be very sparing with the ammo, because it's almost impossible to trade into the box mid-round. But in co-op, you can get rid of it after you use it and keep picking it up, giving you a lot more killing power to work with. That's one reason the co-op record is higher than the solo. Max and Razmo trained in the street outside the theater, which is the most open area, blasting partial hordes with this and the other main wonder weapon, the Entangler, which can throw zombie souls at other zombies. They use speed variants of LMGs like the Mauler and the Titan for movement speed, and to pick off the special zombies that spawned and tried to get in their way. The solo world record for Beast is shortly behind at 134 by Razmo, who used basically the same strategy but had to incorporate more traps to balance the lack of refilling Venom X ammo. Also, at a certain point, he could only use the Entangler due to ammo constraints. Both these games ended to deaths from being overwhelmed. Next, we're on to World War II. This game gets a little weird again, as it is the first since World at War to have abnormal round lengths. Until round 100, everything is pretty similar to the other Call of Duties. But after 100, the rounds stop getting longer and there are no more special rounds, so you're essentially playing round 100 over and over again. There's also no round cap, so records will get pretty high, but the resets are mostly low to balance this out. I'll try to fire off a lot of these fairly quickly, as many of the strategies are straightforward or very similar to each other. Starting with the first and most popular World War II map, we have the Final Reich with a record of 254 by American player Knowles. This map has a solid wonder weapon and traps, so it's very fast and accessible for high rounds, but it's also one of the more complicated World War II maps. Knowles used the wonder weapon, the Hurricane, whenever he had ammo for it in the spawn room. The Hurricane shoots a slow-moving orb that damages zombies as it passes, so he could sit in a corner and shoot down the straightaway, killing everything in the orb's path. When he ran out of ammo, he would go down to the sewers and run between the saw trap and the fire trap down there. For the saw trap, he would stand behind it and let it kill, stunning any zombies that approached behind him by shooting them in the head, which is a feature on this game. For the fire trap, he would hoard up in the tunnel and force the trap to fling him down into the sewers again by standing in a specific place when turning it on. He ended up resetting on 254 after just 38 hours, making this the shortest reset of all time. Groston House, the smallest map of all time, has a record of 154 by JM Patriot 1776. This map is just 2 rooms. It's probably smaller than your house, but JM Patriot still found a way to push through for over 54 hours to achieve this round. There's not much space to work with, so he utilized the entire map, running up and down and stalling at the stairwells, keeping almost constant fire on the zombies with the MP40, doing the same route over and over. World War II's zombie health scaling doesn't work exactly the same as previous games, so killing a zombie on round 100 here isn't as hard as killing a zombie on round 100 on, say, Town. But JM Patriot used something else to help himself out as well. He equipped Lucky Crit before the game, a passive that gives you critical hit shots against zombies, allowing him to kill a zombie with every few seconds of shooting. Still a long process, but it got the job done until his death on 154. And then there's Prologue, the alternate version of Groston House that just has nothing on it. No perks, no pack-a-punch, no passive abilities, just you and some bullets. The record on Prologue is only 53 by Australian player I Love Controversy, where he used the reverse of the Groston strategy route, although it was much slower as he could not kill as fast. This game took him over 10 hours and finally ended to a death. The Darkest Shore has a record of round 310 by Randizi Gaming. Randizi camped at the Pack-a-Punch machine with the Ripsaw, a common wonder weapon used in World War II high rounds. In this game, Pack-a-Punch actually allows you to buy upgraded ammo for any upgraded gun, so you can easily spam off the Ripsaw from this alcove, and you really only have to leave to re-up your armor in the room below you. He kept the Pack-a-Punch Ryby rolls for insta-kill drops, as it shoots exploding rounds that don't even hurt you. The biggest threat to him was the Wustlings, the rather imposing giant armored zombies, but he could spin around them, cutting them with the Ripsaw and outpacing their attacks to kill them. He finally died when trying to leave the camping spot to get more armor and getting stuck. The Shadowed Throne has a record of 341 by RDE. On this map, we see the other very common wonder weapon, the Blade of Barbarossa. This is an obtainable sword that kills infinitely just by swinging, so RDE used that in the underbelly area of the map near Pack-a-Punch, keeping the two nearest doors closed. He bounced back and forth between these two spots to keep from getting pushed too far into the corner and overwhelmed. Similarly to the Darkest Shore, he kept the Ryby rolls for insta-kills and spun the Whistling zombies to keep them at bay while killing them. This game finally ended to a reset after just over 38 hours. Moving on to the Tortured Path maps, Bodega Cervantes is the only joint world record on World War II, at 320. The first was by German player Gaffy13 in 2020. Bodega has both the Ripsaw and the Hurricane, so Gaffy put these to work running large trains of the map, along with the Pack-a-Punch pistol as well, which shoots explosive bullets and gives you points like you just won the lottery. The game lasted over 72 hours, but finally ended to a disconnect, as by default you can only play the Tortured Path maps online. This year, Randizi Gaming tied this record almost twice as fast by staying in this courtyard with the Ripsaw instead of running the zombies across the map. When he had Hurricane ammo, he would spam it in the box room similarly to Gaffy to get maximum kills. However, Randizi's game eventually ended to a freeze when shooting the Hurricane. USS Mount Olympus, or the boat map, has a record of 373 by, once again, I Love Controversy. It was just discovered this year that you can also get the sword on the Tortured Path maps and utilize it for high rounds, so that's exactly what Controversy did. He spammed it at this bottleneck at the top of the stairs onto the deck, keeping the Hurricane in his pocket for safety. This game also ended to a disconnect, further proving that the scariest part of the Tortured Path is your internet connection. Altar of Blood boasts the highest round on World War II at 596, also by I Love Controversy. Very similarly to Mount Olympus, you can use the sword on this map and swing to your heart's content, in this case camping by double tap. This record actually does not currently have gameplay uploaded, as it was accidentally deleted by Controversy and he hasn't re-uploaded it. However, he doesn't live up to his name in this case, because he also has the second highest round on this map at 451, so there's no fight for the record. Both these games eventually ended to resets. So what do we think the strategy on the final map of World War II is? Traps, Ripsaw, or meleeing? If you went with the safe third option, you're correct, because the Frozen Dawns record is 440 by Randizi Gaming once again. Swinging a hammer this time, but swinging either way. Randizi stood next to this lawn ornament with the door behind him closed. Like the other swinging maps, there's not much strategy variation besides Ryby rolls spamming on insta-kills, and staying consistently fast to race against the map's 47-hour reset. Randizi reached this just minutes into 440, ending his game on one of the highest rounds on the title. Black Ops 4 is a bit of a nightmare of categories, since not only does it have both classic and mega elixirs, it also has 4 different difficulty modes: casual, normal, hardcore, and realistic. However, since casual isn't really played and realistic is incredibly difficult, the highest rounds on the maps are either on normal or hardcore difficulty with classic elixirs. The main difference between these is that normal caps the zombies' health at round 35, and hardcore never caps, causing insta-kill rounds to start start on 163 just like on Black Ops 1, although after that they fall on different rounds. On some maps, hardcore is arguably easier than normal, and on others it's harder, but regardless, the highest round on each map is just on the one that's more played out. 9 is a good example, its highest round being 342 on hardcore by IMZ123. Hardcore is probably the harder version of 9, as on higher non-insta-kill rounds there's not much that can kill quickly, and it's very chaotic with all the catalysts and special zombies. IMZ used a combination of traps, the shield, the Viper and Dragon specialist, and alternate ammo types to kill, although AATs on this game are not nearly as fast or effective as on Black Ops 3. He stayed mostly in the spawn arena and ran through the raw tower whenever he needed to replace his shield in the pit, keeping all other doors out of the arena closed. However, even though this game was 266 hours long, points became a huge problem for him toward the end. He downed twice near the end of the game, causing him to lose massive amounts of points, and he could not make them back due to the fact that Black Ops 4 awards points based on damage percentage, not accuracy. When he finally downed a third time, he was forced to quit the game, as he could not buy his perks back and probably would have died anyway. Oh, and you may have noticed that the round on Black Ops 4 does not display correctly after a certain point. While there's no round cap of 255, and the rounds do progress, the round counter will actually reset after 255, going blank on 256 and displaying 257 as round 1, 258 as round 2, and so on. I'll place a plus 256 after each number to make things clearer. Voyage of Despair is another map that's controversial simply because all the gameplay of the actual record has been deleted. Technically, the highest round is 329 on normal by Daybreak. Only a few clips remain of this game, and they show Daybreak camping in different rooms of the Titanic based on what elemental version of the Kraken wonder weapon he refilled. This gun can be refilled by picking up dropped items from Catalyst zombies, so whenever he ran out of ammo he would grab one, convert the weapon, and keep going. He also used the Viper and Dragon specialist whenever he could. His game lasted about 200 hours, but would finally end to an error. The highest round with full gameplay on Voyage is 246 on normal by Jake Snussbuster, who used basically the same strategy. See, while there are 4 elemental versions of the Kraken, only 2 are really useful for high rounds: Electric and Ice. Electric is by far the best and fastest, but on a given round only 3 of the 4 Catalyst zombie types will spawn, so every 4 rounds no electric zombies will spawn, and you have to play the round with Ice. Jake played his electric rounds down at the bottom of the lower grand staircase, and the ice rounds just above in the Millionaire suite. But much like the Titanic itself, Jake's game would unfortunately end to a crash. Blood of the Dead has a world record of 468 on hardcore by Daybreak. Since he played on hardcore, Daybreak experienced a lot of insta-kill rounds. In fact, starting on 362, every round is an insta-kill round. On normal rounds, Daybreak used the chain trap in New Industries, which attracts zombies and has a fast recharge. When it was recharging, he would simply run a cutback around the room, blast a horde of zombies with the shield, and farm dogs with the key to recharge the blast while the trap spun or while he did another cutback. He also used the samurai sword for safety if he got stuck. However, on insta-kill rounds, he was forced to change his strategy. See, on Black Ops 4, due to a glitch with the zombies having no health on instas, they will not jump out of any window that can be boarded up on these rounds. They will just stand there. So on these rounds, Daybreak went to the prison cafeteria with the main door closed and laid into the 3 windows with an SMG, spraying down the zombies with no resistance except the occasional dog. He went on and on like this for about 320 hours of gameplay until it finally ended one day to an error that stuck his game on the pause screen, and he had to quit. Classified's world record is 274 on normal by Venoms. He used the electric trap, but not really in the same way as you do on 5. On this version, you can just stand next to it in the doorway with the door into spawn closed, and almost all the zombies will run through it and die. Whatever zombies come from the other direction can be killed with Wraithfire grenades. It's extra helpful that on Black Ops 4, grenades automatically refill after about 40 seconds, so Venoms could just keep using these to defend himself whenever he hit the trap. He used the Winter's Howl for safety. Yes, it actually does something on this version, since the zombies' health caps at round 35, and whenever whenever the trap had to recharge, he would ride the elevator down to the war room, do a loop around there with wraith fires, ride it back up and repeat the strategy. He also used the death machine specialist whenever he could as well. He eventually quit this game after almost 117 hours due to a bizarre glitch that only happens on Classified, where the maximum horde size will become smaller and smaller, causing the strategy to slow down immensely. He was at 20 zombies per horde instead of 24 when he finally decided to end it. The world record on Dead of the Night is 430 on normal by Kill Will V2. Kill Will used a little strategy I like to call shoot the floor like your life depends on it with the Hellion Salvo rocket launcher, a very common weapon to use early game on many Black Ops 4 maps. However, unlike those other maps, where players usually have to stop using the Hellion due to ammo running out, Dead of the Night has a feature called Silver Bullets, where ammo for any weapon can be purchased from a specific workbench. This meant that Kill Will could spam the Hellion, along with the Wunder weapon Alistair's Folly, at the ground for the entire game. He accentuated this with the Viper and Dragon specialist, staying in the master bedroom where the spawns were fastest and only leaving to buy more ammo. Unfortunately, one of these ammo runs would lead to his doom after 178 hours of gameplay, as he got stuck and died. Ancient Evil reigned supreme with the highest round and longest game in zombies, 528 on hardcore by White Reggie. This map actually has a lot of variety in its gameplay because of tribute challenges. See, on normal rounds, Reggie would stay at the back of the Temple of Apollo with a nearby door closed and spam a combination of the Redeemed Hand of Chiron, the Viper and Dragon, and the Electric Staff. However, when he ran out of ammo, he would have to do tribute challenges to try to get a max ammo from the pedestal. These included any number of objectives, from dealing melee damage to not getting hit to killing zombies with specific weapons. Even though he wasn't racing against reset, Reggie had an approach for every unique tribute to farm his max ammo back as fast as possible and continue killing. On insta-kill rounds, the strategy simplified a lot, as all he had to do was stand next to the shield table and kill zombies with the shield's melee, turning around to buy a new one whenever his shield was depleted. Since every round after 362 is insta-kill, he ended up doing this for more than half the game. This game would last a whopping 411 hours and finally ended to a power outage while Reggie was paused overnight. Alpha Omega's record is 257 on normal by our Black Ops 3 friend Keg. Somehow, he got trapped on this map and got the record. Keg camped on the Yellow House's porch with the explosive Pack-a-Punch trench gun, wraith fires, and the death machine specialist. Similarly to Dead of the Night, he only had to leave his camping spot to buy ammo across the map. Keg eventually quit after achieving the first round counter reset on the map in 81.5 hours, which goes to show how fun this map is. And finally, Tog der Toten's record is 416 on normal by IMZ123. Tog has a one-window strategy at the top of the boat, making it quite possibly the easiest map on Black Ops 4. IMZ took advantage of this by spraying the packed trench gun directly into the window and camping it with Ragnaroks, killing hordes of zombies almost as fast as they were spawning. He also only left to run across the map and buy ammo, making for as quick and efficient a game as possible. He erred after about 91 hours. Today though, it's been discovered that this error is caused by opening Pack-a-Punch, so skipping this step and utilizing a different strategy could push the map even further. For Cold War, we're going to return to the same format as Black Ops 3. Instead of 255, the round cap on this game is 935, but the round progression works a little differently, kind of similar to World War II. At round 55, the zombie's health will cap, and on round 51, the round length will start increasing extremely slowly, like a few seconds every round, so you'll get 100 or so rounds that are basically the same length. This makes round 935 very accessible, just like how Black Ops 3's round cap is. As such, this game is once again judged more on time to 935 than achieving the round itself, so I'll be going over the first and fastest 935s on each map, as well as how many have been achieved. There are 12 935s on D Machine, the first by Pikachu in August 2021. Cold War is also known for being incredibly unstable on high rounds, especially D Machine. This mostly pops up in the form of frame stutters and freezes 10 or more seconds long that can easily get you killed or simply crash your game. However, it was discovered through trial and error that there are areas you can stay in or actions you can take to keep your game at a playable level of stability. One of these was staying in the D Machine spawn room, room, which is how Pikachu achieved the first max round on the map. Since there's a workbench there where you can buy grenades, specialist weapons, support score streaks, and infinite self-revives, Pikachu simply never opened any door out of the spawn room, hoarded up the zombies in there, shot them with the war machine, and repeated, collecting their salvage to keep buying more war machines. Eventually, in the 800s, the stutters got so bad that he could not run around the room without dying, so he stood next to the workbench, threw decoys in the middle of the courtyard, and spammed the war machine, and he had enough salvage that he barely had to move for the final stretch of the game. It took him 174 hours and almost 100 downs, but he finally got there. The fastest 935 is currently by German player Chiara Kiwi02 in 91 hours 15 minutes, and he used a bit of a different strategy. There's an extremely fast strategy if you play with the ray gun and the Ring of Fire field upgrade in the penthouse area above Noct, with the door behind you closed. However, because of sheer speed, this strategy makes the game extremely unstable after a while, and no one has been able to play it for a full game yet without crashing. Kiwi intentionally slowed down the strategy a bit by shooting the floor of the penthouse with the ray gun as opposed to the spawns, and he left the penthouse on round 662 to keep from crashing his game. He spent the next 50 hours using the RC car support score streak in Spawn, which emits a blast every few seconds that kills zombies and keeps the player temporarily invincible. With this, he was able to make it to 935. Firebase Z has 8 935s, and the first one was the first 935 on any map by Dark Air in April 2021. Dark Air camped in the weapon lab room and switched between the two fire modes of the Ray K, laying down an orb shot and then shooting it until it exploded and killed all the nearby zombies. The rest of the time he would use the Ring of Fire field upgrade as much as possible while firing out the doorway of the weapon lab. Dark Air didn't time his game, but it probably wasn't very fast considering he did have over 200 downs by the end of the game. Today, the fastest 935 is by Drain BB in 87 hours 49 minutes. Drain is actually the only one so far to pull off a max round game in the motor pool instead of the weapon lab. This spot is definitely sketchier than the old one, but it's a good 13 hours faster, and Drain stayed on top of the zombies, manglers, and mimics with Ring of Fire and well-placed Reiki shots. For order rounds, he was actually able to insta-kill the boss after a certain point because he was able to kill him before he even spawned, saving a lot of transitional time in the round. Maurer Toten has the most 935s at 27, the first being by Beta Pack-a-Punch in January 2022. Punch camped for most of the game in the power room with the door behind him closed, spamming war machines and the Cerberus Wonder weapon with Ring of Fire. At round 867, he switched strategies as he was experiencing massive stutters, sometimes where the game would freeze for several minutes before unfreezing. For the rest of the game, he camped in the grocery store area, spamming War Machine and the China Lake. It's also worth mentioning that he took no downs in this game, finishing completely flawless. The fastest 935 now is by Godzilla 0936 in 55 hours 17 minutes, once again using a completely different strategy. Godzilla started his game camping in an area called Death Strip, which lives up to its name as the spawns are extremely fast, but surprise surprise, it makes the game very unstable. At round 357, he started camping in the Hotel Room 305, where there are only 2 spawns. One of them happens to be right next to you, where zombies climb up through a window in the adjacent room. Godzilla used the Frost Blast field upgrade to hit them through the wall while they climbed up, then spammed the China Lake at the doorframe and out the window to take care of the rest. He was the first person to defenestrate his shots like this and spawn kill the outdoor spawn. The ridiculous speed of this strategy makes this by far the fastest map on Cold War. And this is abruptly followed by the slowest 935, Forsaken, on which there are only 3 games that have reached the max round. The first was by Insomnia Virus, also in January 2022. This is another first 935 where the player stayed in the first room the entire game and just kept using the specialists from the workbench, because leaving the area destabilizes the game so much that you're basically guaranteed to die from a freeze or a crash. Insomnia used a combination of death machine camping in the corner of the spawn arena or hoarding up and using grenades. In the 800s, he switched to spamming the war machine as his stutters were getting pretty bad and he could no longer reliably move around the room much, reaching 935 after 152 hours. Later that year, Beta Pack-a-Punch would best him by using the war machine for the full game in the spawn room, hitting 935 after 140 hours. He did leave the first room and open up the map to get perks, Pack-a-Punch, and the ray gun, but he came back to spawn and stayed most of the game there to prevent stutters and crashing. He was also flawless in this game. Cold War also features Outbreak, the zombies' objective mode. It's quite a bit different than normal zombies, as round progression is based on completing tasks, and rounds do not get longer, but it is still round-based, and the record stands at an impressive 2,159 by Try It Out. Outbreak has the same round counter reset bug as Black Ops 4, except the counter resets at round 1024 instead of 256, although the number inside the skull at the start of each round shows correctly. Try It Out simply strategized by completing objective after objective, but his game became very buggy throughout the nearly 200 hours of gameplay, with regular zombies turning invisible and the sound cutting out. These performance glitches finally caused him to die at the end of his game. And finally, we have Dead Ops Arcade 3 with the highest round of 319 in a co-op game by iGameIStream, Rogers, and Chris Voltage. DOA 3 also has a 64 round cycle, but introduces some new aspects like the Wild, which is kind of an open world dungeon-like arena. The trio made it to the end of the 5th rotation, clearing the arena where the last team had gotten stuck, an incredibly difficult one called Coliseum, on this rotation. In fact, they were literally one round away from the 5th monkey boss fight, but they ended up dying just 60 seconds from changing the round. The funny thing is, if they had gotten 320, they may have had an unbeatable record, as no one has ever reached a boss round with 5 monkeys on any DOA, so the difficulty would be virtually impossible. So, like DOA 2, this round is beatable, but not by much. And just in case the guy who has all the Vanguard records watches my video, I'll include the round-based maps on Vanguard too. This game has very similar round progression to Cold War, but no round cap. Shin Onuma Reborn has a record of 960 by Shotgun 360, where Mr. Gun camped outside the fishing hut and spammed the ray gun, using this game's equivalent of Ring of Fire whenever he could and collecting armor and ammo drops, or buying ammo back from the nearby crate. The Archon's record is 956 by Shotgun 360 also. Shotgun camped in the temple and spammed the launcher with Ring of Fire, using a similar strategy to buy back or pick up ammo to keep him going. This strategy is considerably faster than Shino Reborn's, because you're spawn killing the zombies instead of letting them come to you. And I don't think this will come as a shock to anyone, he crashed. And that's it. That's every single zombies map. Well, if you don't count DS Zombies, Wii Zombies, COD Online, COD Mobile, Custom Zombies, or Last Gen BO3. But even The Godfather needed a part 2. Now, I know what you're thinking. How long before this video becomes outdated? Well, that's the thing. Probably not long. If you're seeing this right when I upload it, congratulations, you're up to speed. But if this video looks a bit old, I would say a new highest round is achieved on one of these maps about every month or two. All relevant resources will be down in the description, so I'll try to update the description and make a pinned comment as records from this video are beaten. The best way traditionally to keep track of records has been to look at the Zombies World Records website, but with their seemingly eternal staffing issues and controversies, that's a whole other video, and the fact that the site has been offline for several days at the time of writing this, I wanted to recommend a new site that's coming out that's attempting to solve the problems of ZWR and get an accurate record breakdown out to the public, and that is ZHQ. It's not actually dropping until mid-October, but I'll leave links below to follow them and their project, so you can refer to the most accurate and updated leaderboards when the site does come out. I may also be running my tournament, Zombies Wunder Championship, through them in the future, the very near future. And since this video has become the length of a feature film, I'm going to call it there. I'm Wonderful, and this is how far we've pushed every single Zombies map in 2024. Thanks for watching.
Fetch me this!